Here's my strategy for the Gridmaster sub 30 Inferno. I brought the Khopesh with some melee, and I brought Ice Barrage for the Nibblers. And I also brought a range switch for Jads and for Zuck. T-Bow is laughably easy to get, just get a drop at one of the raids, and you have it. It's completely free. And it'll make a sub 30 Inferno a trillion times easier. My main strategy was to Ice Barrage the Nibblers, and then Blood Barrage them until they're dead, and then I used the Thunder Khopesh with a Blood Fury on, and I spammed down every single thing I could. Bats didn't really need a spec, but I spec'd everything else I could. I wanted to make this as mindless as possible, so I just kept hitting the mages in melee range with the Khopesh. They did melee me a few times. I probably could have died here quite a few times, but if you don't want to melee the mages in melee range, you can stay one tile back and hit them with a Noxious Halberd, which goes from 5 ticks to 2 ticks with a 5th relic for combat. You could also just T-bow the Majors. You're going to want to target the Majors first, as they can revive the other little guys, which will slow you down, and you definitely want to try to kill the blobs with a Khopesh spec, because that can kill the little bloblets instantly when they spawn, which will save you a ton of time. The supplies I used were an unlimited stack of noted Karambwans, the Corrupted Shark, and an unlimited Brew, Restore, and a Super Combat Potion, and a Range Potion. If you don't want to get the Herblore for the Super Combat or in the Brew, you can kill a ton of bosses to get them easily, like KQ, which you have to kill anyway, and Vardorvis also drops Super Combats. If you really don't want to go get a Super Combat, Super Attack and Super Defense are good enough. On some of the higher level waves that are notoriously bad, like 63, I did go behind the pillars and have to T-bow down the Major and the Ranger and take out the Major first that way. The main thing that you gotta do for the waves is make sure your health doesn't dip too low. You can just eat a Corrupt Shark and a Karambwan to go to almost full health from anywhere, and you can brew before the wave starts like I did around 63. But for the most part, I wasn't getting killed, I wasn't taking a ton of damage, and I have the relic that revives you. If I did proc the relic in one of the waves, I would have probably been a little more cautious and stood behind the pillars, T-bowing what I needed to kill. For the Jads, the single Jad, and the triple Jads. For the single Jad, I ended up just hitting it with the Khopesh until it died while praying melee and being brewed up. But for the triple Jads, I used the T-bow with my range switch, and I just completely ignored healers because a 2-tick T-bow completely out DPSs the healers. It's not even close. For Zuck, I hit it for a bit of damage and waited before I triggered Jad because I didn't want to have to deal with Jad with a set, a Ranger, and a Major. So I just waited for the Major and Ranger to spawn. I killed them easily with the T-bow, no need to switch to the blowpipe for them. And then I got right back on Zuck. Then, at 480 health, Jad spawned, so I killed him. Same method as before, just ignore the healers, and focused on not getting hit by Zuck, which I could have done a better job at. And then, after killing Jad, the healers spawned, so I tagged them, and I didn't even bother killing them. I just went right back on Zuck, because I had last stand up, so I let them kill me for a bit more DPS, and I stood there in the middle, killing Zuck completely easily, with, again, the 2-tick T-bow, which makes this pretty laughable. Okay, that's basically all the strategy I used. I'm going to put on some music for the rest of this, and good luck on your sub 30 Inferno. Also, before I go, I should say, if you die in here, it literally doesn't matter. It's a temporary game mode. Just go back in, learn from your mistakes, and you will get this done.